Hello, y'all. I am Stephanie Jones. I appreciate a few minutes of your time here with us. Just going to talk to you just for a brief moment about a piece of the world of autism. There's a book that has been written called Walk a While in My Autism, and a quote in there by a woman named Temple Grandin, who is an authority on autism. She herself is autistic, is a professor, a huge advocate in the world of autism. She quoted in there talking about her life being equated to that of Data, the android man, in Star Trek: The Next Generation. I don't know if you're familiar with that character at all, but he approached everything, he's a computer, so he had to assess information, assess data, and be able to regurgitate it back out, whether it be in that scenario or in a later situation he would keep it in his memory banks. And that is how she's had to approach the world, kind of as this scientist in an alien environment, is what she says. I am the mother of a now 14-year-old child who is on the autism spectrum. He has been very similar to Data, the android man, so I found that quote intriguing, in how he would process the world. It is very different from how we view things. So, with that in mind, I just wanted to share just a snippet of what it's like to communicate in kind of our society as somebody who, in a neurological perspective, doesn't actually fit in it. So one example I would bring to you is, like Data, the android man, Glenn has a memory bank of stored information that he would have for situations that were normal, something that he has done repetitively. This was a school environment where every day in school they would come out to the bus stop, crosswalk area, to get to their cars because they were all driven students. Every day when Glenn's class came out, it typically coincided with the woman who would be giving the announcement about whether or not the crosswalk was available for us to go through to get to our cars or not. This particular day, she had spoken it before his class came out. This was very confusing to Glenn. So I liken him more to the robot from Lost in Space, that he would, when information came and he didn't understand it, he would tell Will Robinson, does not compute, does not compute. And that was what I watched in my son as he came out and didn't hear these words. It was, does not compute, does not compute. And then referring back to his Data man, he's looking at his cycle here and nothing's working because this is supposed to happen. So he stops, he announces to the entire area, is the crosswalk open? Is the crosswalk open? Because that's how he had always heard it said, rather than just, Mom, is the crosswalk open? Can we go? Because he had never heard it in that kind of a language. The teacher who makes the crosswalk announcement clicked her little heels over to us and was not at all enamored with how she thought she was being made fun of, and had to explain to her that no, she knew that Glenn was on the autism spectrum and that this is how he takes in information and then regurgitates it back out. There is another book that is written by a man named Kareem Nazir, and it's called Send in the Idiots. And he writes from a perspective of, he's an autistic adult now, for college students that he went to school with, and he went back and decided to check them all out and see how they are. And in this mode of socializing and communication, he says that communication is like a performance. That he's learned, again, in the same as being this Data, the android man, that he kept information processed and would learn how to then perform it back out in correct scenarios. And so if he was in an environment where it was does not compute, then he would go back into that Data brain and then perform back out what needed to be done. So an example of this in my son's life was just a few short years ago, my father-in-law passed away. Glenn and my husband went to visit him every Saturday. So this was, we thought, going to be a huge deal, which was different. I'll just leave it at that. But the day of the funeral came, and not having ever had this environment before, the limousine had rolled up, and Glenn was awestruck that he was going to go in a limousine. So he is bounding down the steps. Come on, limousine! Limousine! Let's go to the limo! It's here! mind you, everybody else in the house was mourning the loss of this man in our lives. So I'm trying to get Glenn's attention. Look, look. So he's now, data does not compute, does not compute. So he looks around to see how people are acting and what they're doing. He notes a few things going on. He looks at his dad's face, notices his face. So he goes up to his dad and, to the moon! And takes off. So that's just a little bit of an example of what it's like to be one of these individuals. And since it's very prevalent in our society now, you're likely to encounter it. So you know, when they come into your world, it does not compute. When you're into their world, it likely will not compute. So I appreciate your time and hope that you have gathered just a bit of information from this.